Thank you very much. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Eric, and good to see all of y'all tonight. And I'm not give you a whole lot of drunkalog. I assure you that I'm qualified to be here, but I am going to tell you what I've been through, or what my life's been like the last several months. I and why I'm so grateful to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. In March, my wife passed away. In April, I sold my home in Georgia. At the end of April, first part of May, I think I've been in my apartment 2 days. I had a stroke. That's why my speech is a little bit slurred now. They tell me I'm past the stroke, but recently I found out I'm going to have a back. Uh, it's not a surgery, it's a procedure, let me put it that way. And so that all that put together makes me awful glad to be here tonight. Uh, the neurosurgeon told me that my lifestyle with smoking and drinking liquor is what caused the stroke. It was the benefit of my lifestyle. But what saved my life was my change in lifestyle. The fact that I had been in recovery for quite a while. So it's it's due to Alcoholics Anonymous, especially Big Book Step Study, and people just like you that I'm here. Many blessings have come my way since being in recovery. I was not reconnected. I was connected with a 35-year-old daughter that I wasn't sure was mine. We have a beautiful relationship now. She has 3 grandchildren for me, and after she got past the initial shock to find out I was not the thug that her mother told her I was, she was glad for me to part of her life. And I assured her that her mother had not lied to her, because in 1984 I was a thug. I was a drunk gambler with no ambition and nowhere to go except out of the military, with retirement only by the grace of God, and a commander that saved my career, allowed me to stay long enough to retire. I retired at a respectable pay grade, and it's just all a blessing. I mean, anything that's in my life today good is not something I deserve. I am a grateful recovering alcoholic, and I'm going to now attempt to tell you how the fourth step applies to me and what I went about doing it, and the instructions I got. And they're very simple. It's easy for me to get, especially when I'm put under pressure, like 20 to 30 minutes. I'm generally good for 10 at least, because I just get right to the point. But I love this step, and I didn't even know it at the time. I think I was taking the steps just to satisfy my sponsor, the guy who had been my sponsor for a long time at that time and still is. He saw me in and out here for the better part of 27 years. And I went to my first day meeting long before Sunday was born. I went to my first meeting in 1978. And so I've been to a lot of meetings. And I was a bad example for a long time. I think every group needs a bad example, and I did that job well for a long time. But today, as a result of not only the fourth step, but all of these steps, my life is good. I have a host of friends. Sherry's one of my dearest friends. And she helped me survive the last 7 months. Last time I fell on my face, she was with me. I fell and broke my nose, blacked both eyes, broke my hand, and she spent 30 minutes trying to patch me up. But anyway, when I stopped bleeding, I went to the hospital the next morning because my daughter called an ambulance for me. So, but anyway, the fourth step. I'm something to get talking about a drunken log or start preaching when I speak, because I'm so enthused about recovery that I'm going to shake some people and get them to get it. Man, this is not that hard. Just do it. And it just, unfortunately, does not work that way. But the guy that's my sponsor today and has been for over 30 years now saw me through some ups and downs and never did get rid of me. It finally convinced me, and I think, again, just to satisfy him, I was about 3 years sober at the time, convinced me to do this process. Okay, I'll do it. So after doing the first 3 steps, outlining the book as I was directed, reading the whole thing with him, he told me to come prepared. And I did the first 4 steps on the phone. He told me to come prepared with a 5-section notebook, 2 number 2 pencils, and we was going to get started writing when this session was over. And I thought, my God, he's going to tell me what kind of pencil they use. I'm thinking now, I'm quite up there in years, and I can read and I can write, and I think this is just the most ridiculous thing I've heard. But I agreed to do it. So we get to the fourth step, and when the very first paragraph, it starts with nothing kind of, well, wait a minute, I'm at the wrong place. So next we launched on a vigorous course of action. He stopped right there and said, launch it, Tommy, is like right now. He says, when they launch a spaceship, it goes boom right now and gets to work. So when we finish this, you're going to get to work. And so I did all that. And then the first paragraph there, he told me some words to look up, and I looked up some that he didn't tell me to look up. He said, if you have any that you don't fully understand, go ahead and look them up as well and put them in the back of that 5-section notebook with the definition. So I did that. And the first words I looked up were in that first paragraph. The words I looked up in this step were in this first paragraph. And they were, let me see, our decision was a vital and crucial step. I looked at vital and crucial. And it's essential and critical. And the next word I looked up is in that same paragraph, followed strenuous effort. I looked up strenuous, and it's an exhausting effort. So it's a critical, essential, exhausting exercise. In other words, I was going to have to do something now. And so therefore we started upon a personal house cleaning step 4. And he described to me that first paragraph is like a store owner taking an inventory. He does not just count the bad beans, he counts all the beans. So I was ready to make a list of everybody that I ever met, and I really thought this was getting ridiculous now. That I'm going to write, I don't know how old I was, but I was up there in years. I think it was over 20 years ago when I went through this process first time. So I was at least 57. So I'm thinking this is kind of ridiculous. I'd have done all kind of 4 steps, joined Charlie Hazleton, and I have weighed all of them. I didn't do any of them thoroughly, or I wouldn't have been in and out so long, because there's some good process out there. Joe and Charlie's an excellent process. I listen to them all the time. They're 2 men that know the big book as well as my sponsor does, and he can quote it almost verbatim. He's taken so many people through these steps, but when directed to write this list, I started writing this list because I was just going to satisfy him and show him I would do it. I was not really overly excited about it. And so I tore it up a number of times. I tore this list up and threw it in the trash. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. And he reminded me that I said I was willing to go to any lengths to get into recovery. And they never knew anybody that needed recovery any more than I did. So I did finally finish this list, and believe me, it wasn't 2,000 names on it like some of the stuff out here today. My goodness, I don't know how. I wouldn't be here if he'd have told me to write 2,000 names. I just absolutely wouldn't have been here. I'd probably died from alcoholism. But the whole object of this was to identify those people that I had relationships with of any kind. For example, if I was walking down the street every morning with my dog, taking him for a walk, and there was a lady walking on the other side, and we waved at each other every morning, never spoke, but we waved at each other. And one morning she didn't wave. What's going to happen? I'm going to get angry. I'm going to turn alcoholic on her, but I ain't never waving at her again. I'm going to resent her for the next 10 years because she didn't wave back. And this is the kind of information that I needed, or I think we need, and here I go preaching, that I needed to do a thorough, honest and thorough 4th step. So I made that list, and the whole purpose of that was to search out the flaws that make up which caused my failure. And then we go into the resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. And I believe, I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure that that's the only place in the first 103 pages of this book where you see the word disease. We refer to this as an illness, especially when speaking to a newcomer. It tells us that in step 12. And my phone's just a binging. Anyway, it tells us that in step 12 that we refer to this as an illness. So I speak of this as an illness, realize that I have overcome I have recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body, but I will not recover from the spiritual disease. So it's going to be with me from now on. And so this paragraph that started with resentment tells me something that's just the opposite of everything I heard all those years in OPA. It says, when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. I'd always heard just the opposite, that we straighten out mentally first, physically, and then spiritual. But that's not what the book says. It says we straighten out. Once we straighten out spiritually, we straighten out mentally and physically. And that's what happened in my case. I had to get the understanding that I wasn't in charge, that it was a new way of life. I had to be reborn. And by that meaning a whole new set of principles and motives to further my life to the better. And so I begin to understand this a lot better than I've had before. And I tell everybody, I understand these steps better today than I ever did before because I actually did them. I've actually taken other people through the steps. And in my opinion, I believe the 10th step confirms that our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. I believe everybody I've taken through the steps helped me to understand my own alcoholism better and hopefully be more effective in working with the next person. So that's my take on that. And I'll tell you, when I was doing the resentments, that was the good part. When told me to write down the person, the name, the cause, and the effects. The cause is the part I really enjoyed. I felt like after all these years, somebody is finally going to listen to what y'all been doing to me. And I can't wait to tell you about that. And so I had no problem writing that down. Matter of fact, I had a little trouble keeping it to 10 words because there was a whole lot of stuff I wanted to say there, but I kept it to 10 words or less. And in other words, he didn't need me to tell him that Johnny stole $10 from me at the football game Thursday night when I asked him to go get the beers and kept my change. He just needed to know that Johnny stole $10 from me, and we could go from there. So I was able to keep it from 10 words or less. But opposite each name. Oh, and there was another point there that he told me that I haven't seen a lot of. But he told me if I had no resentments against the person on that list, as I went down that list, one name at a time, if I had no resentments, I put a small X by that name. If I just had one resentment against that person, I put a check mark by that name. But if I had more than one resentment, two or more, I circle that name. So that was the way that was explained to me. And many of those folks had their names, had the circle, I promise you. But anyway, I was to set opposite each name what the effect was. And I was told there was 6 effects that would happen. That would be my self-esteem would feel bracketed, my personal relationships, and my security. And if I was directed, if I thought it through, that 100% of the time, those 3 things would be affected if I was going to be resentful. And also could include my sexual relationships. That's if I had had sex with a person or if I had been out of line some way sexually, touching, cooking inappropriately, or whatever. And that also could include my pocketbook. And that was money that was mine. That was not if I got fired, because that money wasn't mine yet. If it affected my pocketbook, it's because I own the money. Okay, so we go from there. I did that. And there's the part that I didn't like so much. We're not going to turn to my part. And be quite honest with you, I thought everybody on that list deserved what I did to them. And the truth is, there was people on that list that I did things to that I didn't have any resentments against. So I came up with the idea of, to make this simple for me, I put a little H by the name going down that list as I went about anybody ever harmed. And I did this when I got to the harms part. And anybody I'd had sex with or been appropriate with anyway, I put a small S by their name. So this will be fresh in my mind every time I looked at that list. And so when I get to writing the turnarounds, there was these questions I was to answer. And these questions were not hard for me. They really weren't hard. The hardest thing in this whole process for me was to be in the turnarounds where wait a minute, I'm getting on the wrong step and I gotta be careful here. These 9 questions, putting out of minds the wrongs others had done. That was hard for me to get out of my mind and just think about me and what I did. And he uses an example. If I lied to you, he says, would you be resentful? I said, of course I would be. He said, well, so you wouldn't want me to lie to you? I said, no. So basically, the first turnaround, I'm not talking about here. I'm about to get mixed up. I'm not even on the turnarounds. Well, I tell you, I start preaching to confuse myself. Anyway, I answered these 9 questions to the best of my ability. It was not hard. The questions are for putting out of my mind what others had done, and the part about lying that went on to say, if I lied to you, wouldn't you be resentful? I said, yes. So the first turnaround would be, I didn't want to be lied to. And it wouldn't be I didn't want him to lie to me. I would have been just as resentful as Sherry lied to me. So it didn't matter who, it was my behavior. And my reaction to that would have been, well, was I dishonest? And dishonesty would be that I never lied. Not some of the stuff that I read today. People write 10 notebooks. I did, I think, a very honest and thorough job with 3/4 of a 5-section notebook full. And it served me well now for over 17 years. So am I going to redo it? Probably not. I promise you, I'm probably never going in my life, God willing, going to do another 4-step, because I do a 10th and 11th step every day. So I keep it clean. I don't. If I offend you, I might not do anything about it right now like I should, but I promise you by tomorrow I would have done something about it, because I can't stand it anymore. I cannot stand to have that knot that God puts in my gut when I've done somebody wrong. And it still happens. I ain't got this perfect yet, and I don't think I ever will. But anyway, where I've been selfish, dishonest, or self-seeking, and frightened. I can't even read. Where I've been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened. That's pretty easy to answer if I'm honest with myself. And it was explained to me that I had to be thorough and honest. And just going on, and I guess it was mentioned to me that the inventory was mine, not the other man's. Because I'm not trying to clean up his part of this. I'm trying to clean up my part of this. So That's really about all I have to say is the fact that if I do this, I'm about to say you again, if I do this by the book, just reading the black part, I can't go wrong. If I'm taking somebody else through the steps, if I'll give them exactly what he gave me, it's between them and God at that point. My job in sponsorship and taking somebody through the steps is to be available and live in recovery with them. I'm not a banker. I'm not a counselor. I can take you through the steps. I can tell you what they did for me. I can live in recovery with you. And I tell you, to live in recovery with somebody for a number of years and have them go back out puts a hurt in my gut. And it's just happened. Just happened. I believe my friend had 14 years or something like that and had been sponsored for a long time. And it just hurt my stomach. So I think working these steps, first yet, I had to work them to be able to have a message. And to carry that message is about the greatest thrill I've ever experienced. So I know I have not spoken 20 or 30 minutes, but God bless you guys. Thank you for listening to me. I hope I've said enough that somebody might have got something out of it. God bless.